Well, welcome to our new segment called AI versus AI, which stands for Artificial Intelligence versus Artificial Ignorance. And everyone's wanting to know what's really true, what's false, and how do we integrate AI in a really meaningful way. So that's why we've created this. So we are gonna talk about oxytocin a little bit today. So tell me what you've been seeing.
All right, so there's a lot of buzz on the internet right now about supplementing with oxytocin. And while we typically know that oxytocin is like the love hormone or the cuddle hormone, we know it's really good for helping us build emotional connections and things like that. There's also a lot of other really great benefits like immune support, inflammatory support, and it even can help with anxiety. But if you ask the AI overview, it's gonna tell you that you might wanna supplement with some extra oxytocin. And so I'm curious to know your thoughts as a naturopathic doctor on if we should actually be adding in extra oxytocin as a supplement or not.
This is a great one. So I will say there is a lot of controversy around this one. So I do know providers, regardless of their background, who are giving oxytocin intranasally. And it sounds initially like a good idea, right? Because we see, as you said, like some really good benefits around oxytocin related to our immunity and anxiety, and even bonding. So having a really healthy connection with other people. Even with COVID, we saw folks that had elevated or really healthy oxytocin fared much better. They actually were more likely to get over the COVID infection much more easily, and also less likelihood of death. So that's pretty significant. But here's what we see in the literature, is that in dozens and dozens of studies, doing intranasal oxytocin actually had some significant drawbacks. In fact, in many cases, it actually made people more anxious, and it also could make people more aggressive. And this was across the board. They looked at folks that had autism, even other types of neurodivergence, and also even mental health concerns. And across the board, it wasn't doing what they were hoping. And part of that is because it can look a lot like the hormone vasopressin, which is another hormone in our body. And when it binds at that site, that's what we think is causing more aggression. And so who are those people, right? And unfortunately, there was only one study that actually showed that it might be helpful, but they couldn't reproduce it in folks that had autism. So, I mean, I think that this is really what, again, maybe that's what people are out doing and that kind of thing, but truly where the rubber meets the road in research, we're not seeing it hold water.
Okay, so that's really good to know. And it kind of helps segue into the next question, because I've been seeing some other things about that potential, other side of oxytocin, we'll call it the dark side of oxytocin, that we know that oxytocin is really good at enhancing our positive memories, but it sounds like we may also be enhancing those bad memories or traumas. What are your thoughts on that?
That is very true. It's really beautiful to think about in a way that, like, if you have these wonderful, beautiful memories of your childhood, that they can be called up and kind of use those same tracks in your neurocircuitry to pull in more of those future experiences. But it is true, oxytocin is dual faceted, and it has these two faces. Where basically it's really dependent upon childhood. So that's really where you're laying things down. So if you have appropriate bonding with your family, mother, that kind of thing, that oxytocin really is being laid down appropriately, helping with the nervous system and also with the endocrine system. So you can call up those memories, right, really easily. But what we find is that this dual faceted part of oxytocin is if you did have bad memories or a really challenging childhood, it has the ability to call those up just as easily. So it definitely has these two faces. So what we want to try to build is more neurocircuitry, and you can really build this into an individual over time. It's not something that's going to change overnight, but you can really increase someone's oxytocin. But it is dual faceted, where it just has the ability to call up any kind of those old memories of childhood, whether they be good or bad.
So it definitely sounds like we don't want to be supplementing with oxytocin, but we also know that while there's a dark side, there are some really good benefits to oxytocin. And so the AI overview says that we can actually increase our own levels of oxytocin through things like physical touch and social connection. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. And as a naturopathic doctor, what are your favorite ways to increase it naturally?
Oh, I love the idea of us increasing our oxytocin, because again, that's what we forget about our humanity sometimes, and even simple things of getting into nature, being around mammals, right? So being around our pets can actually increase our oxytocin, bonding, hugging, even eye contact. And if you think about this, this is where sometimes some of our folks that have neurodivergence, this is where they really do have challenges around that socialization, but this is why they do so well with animals. And so that's what can enhance their oxytocin. We also find that just a mother's care can increase someone's oxytocin. And we also find that gratitude is a big one, even music and also acts of kindness. And so we kind of love the whole gratitude thing. And I think sometimes people are like, oh, well, gratitude, I've never really thought about that. And whether you want to write it down or you want to tell a friend or a family member, or sometimes we actually have like a gratitude bowl and we fill it up throughout the month of all the things that we're grateful for. We put little slips of paper in there and you can pull it back out and be like, oh yeah. So I think that it's when you have that heart connection with another being, right? I think that's really what makes a big difference with oxytocin.
Love that. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, and thank you everyone for tuning into our first episode of AI versus AI. If you are someone who enjoys asking the AI overview for a lot of tips and tricks and information, and you might be curious of what some of our naturopathic doctors have to say, go ahead and send us a message. Let us know, because we would love to hear your ideas for our next AI versus AI.